All right. Those are the issues. What the heck do we do about it? So what do we do about Worlds to make it positive ending, positive spin, none of this ever happens again, and we all ride off into the sunset in disc golf glory? My first thought, everyone's first thought, is for the PDGA to give 100% control of the pro side to the Pro Tour and let the PDGA focus on rules and growing the AM side of the sport. My biggest reasoning for this is that the Pro Tour has proven that they have great communication with the players, and all of this would have been sorted out without us ever knowing. They also, I think, the Pro Tour holds themselves to a much higher standard than the PDGA apparently does looking at this event. But the big thing is, like, the Pro Tour has, like, player groups and stuff like that, like on Facebook and different things, where players are constantly chattering lead up to the event, to where when something goes wrong, the players can post in this, and then the more important thing is the Pro Tour has proven that they listen to those things. So when something's going wrong leading up to the event, like the OB line, a player, it's going to be a lot less intimidating for a player to just go on the Facebook group and be like, hey, anyone else think the OB lines need to be a little bit clearer or whatever? And then that post gains traction. All these players can say it without having to take it public. Because that's the thing, too, is a lot of this was tried to handle in private with the PDGA, from what I understand. Also, I've heard that players who did leave event feedback did not get the response that you would expect. It was kind of like, oh, thanks for the feedback. You know, we'll try to do better type of a thing. Like there hasn't really been a apologetic response from the PDGA, whereas I feel like with the Pro Tour, the players bring these things up, they're fixed, and this Worlds would have went off perfectly because the play was there, and we would have nothing to talk about on the bad side. This Worlds podcast would have just been called The Good of Worlds. It wouldn't have been The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, because the bad and the ugly would have been taken care of before it never made to the public, had the Pro Tour been in control. So that's my first solution. I don't know if y'all agree with the Pro Tour taking control of the pro side or not.
No, I agree completely. I think the PDGA definitely needs a reduced role. I've thought that for a while. If it's just going to be, here's the thing though, the problem is the PDGA has zero indication based on their actions that they're willing to step back in this sport. You know, obviously they seem to have a very, you know, we kind of run the show, we answer to nobody type attitude. So I have no reason to believe that they're going to want to step back. So then that leads me to believe that really the best thing we can do is just make sure we continue holding them accountable. We make sure we elect people that we really believe in. And also remember that we control this sport. The PDGA does not control our sport. You know, the players do always. So if it really comes down to it, you know, we can create new entities. We can support better ones. We don't need to rely on the PDGA. It's not the end all be all of disc golf.
Yeah. But let's say like, I agree with you. The PDGA, from what I've seen, shows no sign of wanting to step back. So let's say the PDGA wants to keep their majors. My biggest point is they need someone who it is their only job to run majors and make sure the majors are ran well.
Yes.
I would love, I would love to have a Worlds in Lynchburg/Bedford. I think we have the courses for it. I think that we have the staff that could put it on. I think we have all of that. But I don't want the risk of running one as a local TD. Because this is what it seems like. It seems like if everything goes great, if the Worlds goes off without a hitch, the PDGA takes the credit almost. Like they'll thank the TD and stuff like that, but everyone's praising the PDGA. What a great event! What a great event! Whatever. If everything goes to crap, the PDGA like immediately turns their back and starts blaming the players and the local staff. Like, the local staff didn't take care of the paint, so we're going to go out. The PDGA staff's going to go out and do this for you. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like the PDGA just kind of started crapping on the TD and the local staff in a lot of ways, and they're not necessarily verbally crapping on them, like saying these guys suck, but like their tone towards things was almost like, oh, we're sorry this wasn't up to your standard. The local staff, you know, blah, blah, blah. And just kept like, so like, why would I want to risk that? Because like, if Worlds came here and like I overlooked something, you know, I overlook whatever, I don't want the risk of like, then Foundation and myself and the rest of the tournament staff, whoever would help me run it, be painted in a bad light. Yeah. Because I've never run a major. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Jade, I believe his name is, I don't know if he's ever run a major, but he's ran a Utah Open. Like, he's ran some big events, but running a major is a whole different thing. So why are you expecting people who have never run a major to just be able to step up and run a major well immediately? Like, that's a big ask for anyone. And then, like, who wants to volunteer for that role? Because, like, if you do a great job, it's unnoticed and kind of unthinked, which being a TD a lot of times does go unnoticed and unthinked. That's part of it. But the flip side of that coin is if you do a bad job, it doesn't fall back on the PDGA, it feels like. It feels like, well, it does, but the PDGA doesn't think it does. They feel like they can just turn their back and be like, well, the players shouldn't have done this. Well, the local staff shouldn't have done this. Like, take some accountability. I feel like if you want your majors ran at a high level every single time, you should have someone who that is their job. Like, they show up a month beforehand. They make sure that everything is up to a certain standard. They are the TD. They are everything. So the PDGA has full responsibility for this event. And if it's someone who has now ran 10 world championships in a row, they're going to know what players need and don't need at a world championship. Whereas if you just throw someone into the fire and like, all right, it's time to run the biggest event in the world for the disc golf, we're here if you need some support. Good luck. Then, like, who wants that? And I think I think this is why the PDGA is struggling to get Worlds bids. Like, last year for this Worlds, I think there's only like 2 or 3 bids. I would be surprised if they're able to get that many. They might have to pick a spot for this upcoming Worlds because what we just watched is a TD's nightmare. Yeah. Because I don't want to ever be in that position. So like, there's no way I'm putting a bid in for Worlds right now because I'm terrified. I don't want to run that. Yeah. I don't want to risk that. Who else would? Who wants to volunteer for that? That's so much work for the chance of having so much crap just dumped on you.
I don't know whose decision. It's like it was somebody's decision at some point to lead in the PDGA by convincing all their staff that we need to take a role of authority. We need to take a role of never being in the wrong. Like everybody in disc golf needs to believe that we always know that we're right, and that's not a good look for an organization like that. Like they have to, something like the PDGA has to be something that is able to move around depending on who the people, like what the people in the sport think. Again, like the players, they like that guy. He's right. He should be answering to the players. Yeah, they're not though.
No,
that's the problem.
Because he says we answer to the players, and then calls one of the people who have probably done some of the most for the PDGA, exposure-wise and growth-wise of the sport, and Brody
on their
Smith,
website.
Yeah. No, Brody Smith's who I'm talking about.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Paige.
Well, Paige, I'm about to talk about in a second. But doing that for Brody, who's brought a lot of attention to disc golf, no one can deny that, whether you like the attention or you don't, calls him, he says it's kind of a jerk move. And also, the way he handled himself the whole podcast is very unprofessional. I get the sunglasses inside is like the shtick of the show he was on. But, like, you're the president of the board of directors of PDGA. You could have at least found a clean T-shirt, moved your bike out of the background, and taken the sunglasses off.
He looked like he had just finished playing Fortnite at his gaming setup.
Yeah. And then he calls Brody kind of a jerk, and then calls Paige, who, no matter what you think about Brody, you can't deny what Paige has done for the sport.
What the heck?
Paige is literally the greatest female player of all time. She is an extreme advocate for women's disc golf and for her other competitors. She's constantly putting them up, putting the spotlight on them. You can't deny any of that. And then when she calls out the PDGA for not treating a women's major the way it should be treated and treating it worse than a men's major, you say that her comments are disingenuous and self-serving. What did Paige gain from that? That's
uncalled for.
Like,
that's just uncalled for.
What does this guy think that Paige gained from calling out the PDGA in that moment? Like, all the risk was on Paige for calling out the PDGA. That didn't build her brand. That didn't make her money.
Yeah.
All she did was say, "Hey."
She's taking a bullet for all the other female players.
You think? Yeah, that's the thing too. Is it's not like she was the one who said something, but it's not like she's the one who felt that way.
Yeah.
And this guy also has, I just can't stand how he was like, oh, well, I didn't see a lot of roasting online, but that's what he sounds like in my head. But like, I heard a lot of roasting. Like, I heard a lot of roasting, man. Like, yeah, there was a lot going on behind the scenes, dude. Like, where did you hear a lot of roasting? All right, well, apparently the PDGA didn't like the road I was going down, so they cut the power to our camera. That's the second time, man. They cut the power to your internet earlier in the show, Trevor. Now they've cut the power to our camera. They're really out for us. But regardless, I think my point was coming across. I was ranting a little bit just because I can't believe what the guy said. But the whole point was, I don't understand how that was disingenuous and self-serving to Paige. I don't think Paige was building her brand by saying that. I don't understand how she was. And also, I think I was saying other players clearly held the same opinions as Paige, that a U.S. women's major should be held to the same standards as a men's major. So,
how can you come after the players? How can you do that?
After saying you answer to the players.
Yeah.
Just turn your back on them.
That's stupid.
But I still, to this point, the thing that I think I'm the most shocked by is the silence from the PDGA themselves to the public eye. to not say anything, like especially about the president of the board of directors. And, you know, knowing Grip Locked, we do this whole show. They'll make an announcement tonight before the show comes out Thursday.
I hope they do.
I
hope
do
they
too.
make an announcement.
Because they need to address that. They need to address what the president of the board of directors said. Because if they don't, like, that's a horrible look. And it makes me like, I have to be a PDGA member to run PDGA sanctioned events. So, like, I can't personally, for the rest of this year, not sign back up as a PDGA member. But it makes me really want to not give them any of my money because I don't like supporting that. But most importantly, what we can do as active PDGA members, if you are, is vote. So the elections actually, I believe, start today when you're listening to this, July 1st. We need a record turnout of, importantly, educated voters. I'm not endorsing any candidates because I want everyone to research and vote for who they think will make the PDGA the most like they want to see. I endorse all the candidates who care the most about the players. I'll put it that way. So you can read what they say and what they're going to do. There's also some candidates with some incredible experience that I think you should read about and learn all of that. You can find their bios on the PDGA's website. There's also going to be interviews, I believe, coming out on the Disc Golf Guys channel, or at least he's the one doing them. I don't know where the interviews are going to come out. There should be interviews, though, where you can hopefully learn a little bit more of the people's vision for the PDGA. But like I said earlier, the only thing that I'm going to give you an insight into what I'm voting or how I'm voting is I'm not voting for anyone currently on the board of directors, because if this is the standard, this is what they think of players, then let's show them what players think of them. So voting, I believe, opens today, runs most of July.
I mean, is that a T-shirt?
That was amazing.
Did you just come up with that?
I did. I don't know. I don't even remember what I said.
You said something about something about the standards of the player. If
this
is what they think about the players, we'll show them what the players think about them.
Yeah, and then vote.
Got him.
There you go. So I encourage you to vote as soon as possible, but make sure you're educated first and you know what you're voting for, who you're voting for, and you believe strongly in their capability for the future of the PDGA. Because I do believe in the importance of the PDGA when it comes to the governing body, the rules. I think that they should take a step back when it comes to professional disc golf. But I think as far as the amateur side of the sport, the growth of the sport, there is a lot of potential for the PDGA and a lot that the PDGA can and should be doing. And we need the right people in charge, or the right people to make the board of directors have power, so that the right decisions can be made for the future of the sport. And I think that is extremely important. So if you're an active PDGA member, please, please, please vote for this board of directors like your life depends on it, because our sport just might.